I'm a big fan of masking in Photoshop, but before you mask, you'll save yourself a lot of time and potential frustration if you first consider a simple idea: blending. Join me as we unmask the mask. All right, so here we are looking at a continuous tone image, ultimately, of some hand-painted watercolor letters. And so you can see that we've got all kinds of wonderful texture and detail and so on. And this comes to us from the Dreamtime Image Library, in case you're curious, about which you can learn some more in a description. But I just want to emphasize that this is a photographic image at the end of the day. Even though it's hand-painted, it's not vectors in any way, shape, or form, for example. And it wasn't created in some kind of digital interface. And what I want to do is I want to blend those watercolor letters against this kind of watercolor background here, dark blue watercolor. And I'm showing white on blue, but whatever, you can do anything you want. We'll be going back and forth. The temptation is to mask. And I just want you to see when you mask and when you don't in cases like this, because this is not masked. There is no masking going on here, whereas this image right here does involve a kind of mask, as we'll see. And so I'm going to start with this guy. Now, let's say you take the typical approach and you think, well, I need to mask these letters. I need to somehow select them. I'll make sure that letters layer is active here inside the layers panel, of course. And then I'd go up to the select menu and choose the subject command, because after all, it's state of the art. It is the newest of the new automated selection commands. So I like it so much I gave it a keyboard shortcut, right? So did that a few weeks ago now. And that goes ahead and selects things, as we're seeing right here. Now, I could just mask this layer, but it's black on white, so I'd be masking away the white stuff and capturing the black letters, so it's going to look like this. Nice job on the B select subject, by the way. This is not the effect I'm looking for. I want white against the blue background. So I'll undo that change. What I would do instead is just turn off that letters layer for the moment, drop down to that black-white icon. I'm moving quickly because I don't want to belabor what's the wrong way to work, because this is so wrong. I'll click on the black-white icon and choose solid color. And then I'll just select white or any color. It doesn't matter. I could do anything I want. I'll go with white, however. And notice that we just have these clumsy edges. I think it's safe to say that they are clumsy. I'm going to zoom in right here so you can see that they're pretty harsh and gummy. And if I were to go up here to the window menu, choose workspace, is that what I choose? I choose range, and then I choose this guy, match all. That way, we're going to have some alignment when I go to this image right here. Isn't that so much better? We have these nice continuous tone edges all over the place. That's not something we're going to get with select subject. Now, if this were a photographic image, your typical portrait photograph, let's say something like that, then your next step would be to go to the select menu and choose select mask and try to reconcile the hair. But if you try it with this image, you're not going to get anywhere. It's not going to do you any good. And so I know this is an exceptional image in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it's not. This is the kind of compositing you might do on a regular basis in Photoshop or elsewhere, for that matter. All kinds of programs support blend modes. All right, so anyway, this is awful, so I'll just delete that layer, start over, go ahead and select that letters layer once again. All these tools are worthless to us. That is, object selection tool all the way down to magic wand tool. Magic wand tool is actually going to do the best job. Do you want to see it just for a second? No, you don't, but I'm going to show it to you. All right, so magic wand tool. Now, notice up here in the options bar, these are the default settings. So tolerance 32, anti-alias, a little bit of softness on the edges, continuous. We'd want it contiguous, that is. I'm going to turn that off because I want to select all the layers, and then I would click in a layer to select it. Any layer will do, letter. And then I would go to the select menu and choose similar in order to expand the selection outline according to that tolerance value right there, which is expressed in luminance levels. Anyway, I'll get more of the letters selected. And then I'll do that same thing where I turn off the letters layer, drop down to the black-white icon, choose solid color, and then I'll set the color to white. And so you can see that we do. There's it's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but we never really think of the magic wand tools delivering the better results. In this case, it kind of does, because it's got more texture associated with it. It's more personality, but that's not what we want either. I'm going to backspace that guy to get rid of it, bring back that letter. And what you want to do, let's switch away from any of the fancy selection tools. I'm just switching back to the rectangular marquee tool because it's the default. And what I would do is resort to a blend mode. And the blend mode in question depends on the effect we're trying to achieve. So the ones you really want to know about, I'm probably reviewing some familiar territory for some of you, but normal is blend mode off. By the way, that's not a blend mode. That's just not applying a blend mode at all. Everything's as opaque as it's going to be according to the opacity of the individual pixels and the opacity value and so forth. Whereas if you want to drop out luminance levels, why then the blend modes you want to work with are either multiply, and it's great that we can preview them now so you can see it happen on the fly, or screen. So multiply would be great if I want to keep my black letters and I want to set them against a bright background, which would mean setting this vivid color layer right here to screen instead. And notice we have black letters against a bright background. We still have all those wonderful transitions. Check it out. I'm going to zoom in on that G. I think it's just a really great demonstration. We keep all the variance in the luminance levels, and this is entirely, I can't stress this enough, I'm so excited, it's entirely non-destructive. I haven't done anything. I haven't harmed a single pixel. I haven't masked a darn thing. I'm not sitting there chewing on my fingernails as I watch these tools fail and so forth. All right, so I'll just go ahead and zoom out, and let's say I want bright letters against a dark background. Then I would change the blend mode for the vivid color layer to multiply. Just gives me a lot of flexibility. That way I'm infusing more color into that watercolor background right there. And then I would take my letters and I would change them to screen this time around. You can see that happen on the fly. That makes sure that white is opaque and then black gets dropped out, but it isn't just a straight dropout like Lighten. That would be a straight dropout on a channel by channel basis, and then we'd have some garbagey edges. Whereas with screen, we have nice smooth transitions that are defined by the luminance levels themselves. So they're actually self-masking is what's happening here. And then, of course, I want white letters against the black background, so I would just go ahead and invert. I'll invert tediously by going up to the image menu and then choosing adjustments and then choosing the invert command, but you can just press Control-I, of course, Command-I in a Mac, and that will run an inversion. That's a non-destructive modification, by the way. It's technically destructive in that I just changed the color of every single pixel on this layer, but it's floppity, don't you know? For every luminance level, there's an equal and opposite luminance level. So for every white, there's a black and all the colors in between. So if I press Control-I or Command-I again, I absolutely 100% restore the original luminance levels. Anyway, I want them to be white on black, so I want this effect here. I also, just for the sake of it, have this piece of line art. So this has lessened away. We don't have those sort of soft transitions like we do with the watercolor layers, or letters that is, but this is a really great indication of what you can do with line art. So I would just go ahead and select that guy. And assuming I want it to be white against the dark blue background, I would invert it, Control or Command-I, and then I would change its blend mode to screen. And if you like keyboard shortcuts, who doesn't? A lot of people raise your hands. Sure, you don't. Okay, so ignore me for a moment. But if you like keyboard shortcuts, why then you want to make sure that this guy's not active, so I'd have to press the escape key. And then you can switch back and forth between these very basic ones. Multiply is Shift-Alt or Shift-Option-M. Screen is Shift-Alt or Shift-Option-S for screen, of course. And then normal, no blend mode, is Shift-Alt or Shift-Option-N. So those are three good ones to know about. I'm going to change it back to screen so we can see the white octopus against the dark blue background. Quick interruption. In a moment, we're going to pivot from blending to masking, not using any of the automated tools, but more simply and reliably in the channels panel. If that piques your interest, then know that I delve more deeply into this intriguing topic at my Patreon, which is patreon.com/DeekNow. And now, go to Deek.com and subscribe to my newsletter. And now, back to the video in progress. All right, now let's say you want an even more flexible solution. What am I talking about? Well, I'll go ahead and zoom this guy out. I want these letters to glow. I want to assign an outer glow effect to the letters. I can't assign an outer glow effect to this layer right here, even though it could look good if I set it to the screen blend mode. That would look great. And, because we have the black and white pixels absolutely intact. But I can't assign a layer effect to that. I can't attach one because there are no edges. There's just one big edge around the entire rectangular layer. What I want is to have edges associated with each and every letter. That is a kind of masking task, but I want you to bear in mind, black on white, white on black, it's going to self-mask. It's going to do all the work for you. You don't have to, once again, work with these selection tools over here. What you do instead, this is just a trick. In case you're interested, I'm going to turn that octopus off. I'm going to click on the letters right there, and I'm going to select them by pressing Shift Alt or Shift Option N to switch the blend mode back to normal. All right, so that's step one. Then you go to the channels panel right there. Next door for me, if not for you, you go to the window menu and choose channels, this guy right there. And that way you are seeing the channels, the RGB channels. Now, because this is black on white or white on black, it looks the same. The image looks the same in all three channels. And so what you want to do is load the image as its own mask. And you do that in Photoshop anyway, by pressing the Control key or the Command key on the Mac. Notice that. Look at my cursor. Right now it's a finger as soon as I press the Control key or the Command key on the Mac. And I get a little selection box around my finger at the base of the fist, I guess. And if I click now, then I select the white pixels and I deselect the black pixels. So it is a mask. We're just converting the mask to a selection outline, and it's going to observe all the levels of gray in between. So we have white gets selected. We have black doesn't get selected at all. And all the grays get selected to some degree or other depending on how close they are to white. So brighter colors are more likely to get more selected. Not more likely, they do get more selected. All right, it's not a game of chance or something. Anyway, I'm going to switch back to the layers panel, turn that layer off, that letters layer, and create a new layer. And I'm just, because I want those edges, and I'm not going to worry about creating another solid color layer and giving it a mask. That's unnecessary in this case. And so I'll just press Control Shift N or Command Shift N on the Mac in order to create a new layer. And I'll call this guy white, because that's what it's going to be, a bunch of white pixels, and I'll click OK. And then I'll fill the selection outline with white. What you want to do is make sure you're seeing the default foreground and background colors, black and white, and then you press Control Backspace or Command Delete on the Mac to fill that selection with white pixels, and you get this effect here. I just clicked off because I don't need the selection outline anymore. Now, you may say, hey, Deke, I think that qualifies as a destructive modification. Well, yeah, in that I changed the color of a few pixels here, but it's a totally different layer, and the original letters are still absolutely intact. All right, so now what I want to do is give it a glow. Now, really basic, trivial layer effect stuff. I'm going to drop down to the FX icon and choose Outer Glow down here. And I'm not going to get fancy. I'm not worried about the color or anything like that. Just white. Notice the color is white, which means I can just set the blend mode to normal because I'm not looking for an interaction. I could go with screen. I'm not going to get anything different, by the way, because it's white. White is always the ultimate brightener. So I'll just leave it set to normal. I have the opacity cranked up to 100%. I have a size of 100 pixels. I'm just narrating this because that's what I got. It doesn't matter. Click OK. And I have these wonderful white letters. Now, one of the things I want to emphasize here is I can kern now. Get a load of this. Notice the T is too close to the S and not close enough to the U. Well, I could just go ahead and press the L key to switch to the lasso tool right there. And I'll just go ahead and kind of vaguely select the T, just kind of drag around it. And because this is all transparent around the T right here, that's fine. This is a good enough selection, in other words. And now I could switch to the Move tool if I wanted to. But, I'll do that. What the heck? And then just press Shift right arrow 3 times to scoot that T over. And because it's disconnected from all the other letters, it moves and the other letters aren't affected. Isn't that awesome? And now I just deselected, by the way. And now I want to be able to see through the letters. I want them to be translucent or transparent like they are here. And so what I'm going to do, I could change the opacity value. You know how to do that, right? I could just tap the 3 key to reduce the opacity value at this point to 30%. But that is really going to give us ghost letters because the glow is getting ghostly as well. So I'll tap the 0 key to take the opacity value back up to 100%. And then what you want to do is change the fill value instead. And you can do that by pressing Shift along with a number key like Shift 3 for 30% for the fill value. And now the glow remains altogether opaque. It's independent, in other words. It's got its own opacity setting that's independent of the letters themselves. What I really want to do is take that opacity, that fill value that is, down to 0% like so. So we're not seeing the letters, we're just seeing the glow. And that goes for any layer effect, by the way. I could go ahead and turn off outer glow, not the effects, just outer glow, so that I can apply a different effect by clicking on the FX icon and choosing bevel and emboss this time around. And I'm going with a thin bevel, by the way. Notice the size value is just 10, soften is 0. I'm looking at an outer bevel for what it's worth, and I crank the depth value up to 500% so that we have a lot of texture going on. Both the highlight and the shadow are cranked up to 100%. Their blend modes don't matter really because they're set to black or white and black respectively. And I could just go ahead and click OK to accept that. And once again, because my fill opacity right there is cranked down to 0%, I'm not seeing the letters. If I wanted to, I would crank that up a little bit, but I don't want to. So I'll take that down, click OK, and now I might turn the outer glow effect back on. And so remember our octopus line art. I'm going to turn off the letters and turn it on. Same deal with it. And I can load it as a selection outline as well by changing it to normal. That's very important because otherwise you're going to see the composite image. Notice here in the channels panel, we're seeing a composite. It's going to vary because there is color in the background. It's going to vary from one channel to the next. So you could load it from the red channel in this case, I suppose, but the better way to work is to return to the layers panel, make sure that layer is selected and change it back to normal. Shift Alt or Shift Option N, up to you. You can just change it manually as well. Go to the channels panel, press the Control key, Command key on the Mac, and click to load that selection outline. So we're selecting the white pixels, which are the octopus lines. Return to the layers panel, turn that layer off. Now it's kind of hard to tell what's going on, so I'm going to press Control H or Command H on the Mac just to hide the selection outlines so you can see nothing up my sleeve. We don't have anything going on here. I'm going to create a new layer by pressing Control Shift N, Command Shift N on the Mac. I'll just go ahead and call it octopus for I think obvious reasons. Click OK. And fill that selection. The selection's still there. We're just not seeing it by pressing Control Backspace or Command Delete because after all, the background color is what we want to use and it's white. And now, just to demonstrate how we might enjoy a layer effect, I'll click on this vivid color layer right here and I'll change it to screen. Oh, I did that manually instead of using a keyboard shortcut. How untricky of me. And now I'll return to the octopus layer right there and I'll click on the FX icon. And this time I'll choose drop shadow just so that we're giving it a kind of dark edge, as you can see right here. Just a thin, sharp, dark edge, by the way. I could increase the distance value if I wanted to in order to add in order to take the shadow a little farther away from the octopus, but I'm going to leave that size value set at just 0 pixels. And then I'll click OK in order to accept that final effect. And those are a few ways to avoid masking with the help of the multiply and screen blend modes, as well as take advantage of masking by just loading a black and white image as a mask from the channels panel. I just want you to know that all of these options are available to you here inside Photoshop. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Remember, for more information about masking continuous tone line art, join me at patreon.com/DeekNow. And go to Deek.com and sign up for my newsletter. I'm Deek McClellan. This is Deek Now.